You know what's interesting? The more I do these videos, the more in my head I get as I do them. And I must have recorded, I don't know, 3 or 4 videos so far today, different topics, trying to figure out what is it that I want to talk about, what feels the most natural, and where do I sound the smartest and the brightest and the most profound. And I'm saying all of this because I think it's such a valuable peek behind the veil of what goes on in someone's mind. And as I sit here thinking about which video and which topic, and is it good enough, and does it say enough, and am I being vulnerable enough and telling enough story inside of it, it's really friggin' confusing and so easy to put so much pressure on a piece of content that in all likelihood very few people will engage with. Now, I don't say that to disparage myself, but rather, even if a lot of people engage with it, so much of this content has such a limited lifespan that this is not a book. And by the way, I've written a book and we're trying to get it out there, and it's a whole different scenario. So I guess in some ways, if I think about trying to put out the perfect video now, compound that by 1,000% with the feelings and uncertainty about putting out a product that I worked on for 8 years. All of that said, this actually does tie into something that I've been wanting to make a video about. I know I said I'd make one about leaving honorably, which I will still do at some point, but something that's been on my mind as a topic to talk about is something that a coach that I greatly admire, his name's Shaun Galanos, that he likes to say, and Shaun fashions himself, he calls himself the love drive. He's a relationship coach. And Shaun says that the buy-in for love is heartbreak. And I remember hearing this a number of years ago when I was single and dating, and it really resonated with me. Of course, at that time, I was actually not willing to be heartbroken. I was not super emotionally available. And so even though his words resonated with me so much, it was so challenging to actually go live that life of a willingness to be heartbroken. And over the years, as I've coached more people, as I've led a men's group for 5 years, as I've been in a few different romantic relationships, and now with my girlfriend for almost 2 years, I see the truth in Shaun's wisdom that one really must be willing to be heartbroken in order to find love. But more than that, heartbreak is not just about romance. It's not just about love. That a willingness to be heartbroken is the buy-in for so many things. It's the buy-in for belonging and community. It's the buy-in for success in a career. It's the buy-in for putting an artistic creation out into the world. It's the buy-in for showing up online in different ways on different mediums. It's the buy-in for friendship. And maybe most importantly of all, which is the undercurrent of all of these, is heartbreak is the buy-in for trust. That if I'm not willing to be heartbroken, I can't possibly trust anybody else, because trust is simply a choice. I know a lot of people who say their trust has to be earned, and that one strike and that trust is gone. And I understand that. It's a very natural expression and relationship to trust. But the truth is, when I trust somebody, there's no guarantee that they're going to be responsible with that trust. Just like when I love somebody, there's no guarantee that I'm going to receive that back. Just like if I put out this video on YouTube or LinkedIn, there's no guarantee that people are going to enjoy it or find value from it. That in each of those circumstances, I've had to put my heartbreak on the table. I've had to put my hurt and my pain on the table and be willing to wager those to have the experience that I want to have. If I want to be in a loving romantic relationship, I have to be willing to be heartbroken. If I want to be successful in my career, I have to be willing to be fired. If I want to be successful as a writer, I have to be willing for people to not enjoy my writing or even not to be published. And I would say this, that if you're struggling to have something you greatly want, you're struggling to have that romantic relationship or meet a person who you really jive with, if you're struggling to find a job, if you're struggling to sell yourself and your services, if you're struggling to put your creativity and your artistry out in the world, if you're struggling to trust your friends and lean on them and ask for more support than you normally do, you might want to consider how willing you are to be heartbroken. Because I guess, and my hunch is, if you're not willing to be heartbroken, it's going to be really hard to have any of those things. And I look at a world where people are unwilling to be heartbroken. People are really willing to be hurt, but they're not willing to be heartbroken. And I think there is a difference because it's one thing to put yourself out there and to experience hurt and to become righteous and angry about being hurt. It's another thing to put yourself out there knowing that you could get heartbroken. Because when that heartbreak happens, well, at least when that's happened to me, when I've consciously chosen I'm willing to be heartbroken, there's only so much I can do. I can't be a victim to that circumstance because I chose it. And there are a lot of people who don't want to take ownership of the fact that when you put yourself out there in the world, you are asking for heartbreak. And that leads me to the end of my rambling here, which has actually, again, gotten fun. Again, this lesson of just speak to what's really there to get to the good stuff is that, what was it? Oh, this is what it was. Here's what it was. And I had this recognition during COVID in 2020, which is we think we live in a world that's very ordered and safe, especially here in the United States. I think other parts of the world, radically different. That is not the experience. But here in the United States, many of us think we live in a world that's ordered, predictable, and safe. And COVID showed us that that's not the truth. I don't think COVID was actually an anomaly. COVID showed us what the world is like, which is unpredictable, unreliable. It's complex, it's ambiguous, it's volatile. That's the way the world is. And the truth is, we walk through the world every day with the risk of being heartbroken. Tomorrow's not guaranteed to any of us or any of the people that we love. We literally walk through the day with the risk of being heartbroken at every moment. But what we don't often do is walk through the day actively and intentionally putting that risk on the table. It lives there, but we're not necessarily choosing it. And that's one of the reasons why it's so challenging when it happens. Because instead of actively choosing, I'm willing to bet heartbreak and use heartbreak as my buy-in for the experiences I want. When heartbreak is happening anyway and we've not chosen it, that is incredibly hard. And that's why people end up hardening their hearts because they want to protect themselves from the pain. That most people adapt behaviors over the course of their lives to protect themselves from pain, shame, and trauma. And using heartbreak as the buy-in for love, for belonging, for trust, for success is opening yourself up to pain, shame, and trauma. And unfortunately, that's the way we have to live. That we cannot live fully expressed, exciting, rich, fulfilling lives if we're unwilling to experience those deep, painful emotions. We often say in the arena men's group, that living is experiencing the highs and the lows of life. That when you just want to experience one way of being, when you just want that calm, when you don't want to experience the low lows, you're choosing to flatline. You could be flatlining up here if you just want the high highs, but you can't get high highs without low lows. You can't experience love without experience heartbreak. So I'll leave you with this question, which is on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being not at all, 10 being completely, how much are you willing to be heartbroken? And regardless of where your number is, whether it's a 1, a 3, a 7, a 10, how is that working for you? I'll catch you next time.